Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition, to another installment of Hashtag Fade to Black. I am your host, Donna Lamonte Morris, here with Anita Joe, aka Teach. Once again, welcome back. And with my
Thank
dog,
you.
my
Thank
bruh,
you.
my bruh, Peace Johnson, man. Hey, Peace, guess what? We're not a two-man show no more. The Queen's back.
Ah, yes.
It's so
I
great once
missed you
again.
all so
Something
much.
else.
Yes, Tish. We so happy that you are back. So we are still. This is the aftermath of having Brandon on the show. And Brandon, if you watch right now, you know, want to shout out to him. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm happy that you made it safely in Kenya, and cannot wait to have you back on the show. But I do got something I have to address and clear up from from the past and previous show. But how was y'all weekend?
It was great.
It was
Uh,
good.
That's good.
I,
That's
I
good.
I ran into a shocker, something that I was shocked about, but should not have been shocked about. They have been advertising that this weekend was going to be the last warm days of the year because fall is here and the temperatures have dipped all the way down to freezing. But we did
Yes.
get up to 60 degrees. So I decided, oh, I think I want to go and look at the lake one last time. And it had been quite a while since I have gone to look at the lake, but I don't know, I wasn't prepared for what I encountered and going to the lake. And what I found out when I got to the lake is that that portion of the lake is privately owned, and they have one lane for you to keep it moving. You cannot stop, you cannot stand, you cannot break down. In this one lane, you got to keep going till you get out of town.
Oh
And
wow.
and I'm like, but the lake is beautiful. And they're like, yeah, right, for residents and for the private owners of this lake. And I'm like, huh, beautiful nonetheless, but with that ugly underbelly.
Oh wow. It's funny, Teach. That's what everybody been saying over here. They was like, enjoy while you can because the rainy season about to happen over here in Seattle, Washington. But yeah, Beast, how about you?
My, my weekend was nice and chill, surprisingly. I try not to do nothing on the weekend if I can help it.
I feel you on that one, sir. My weekend, I had my 3 day drill. Getting great news. Finally, gonna be put on orders to finally work and to be on orders for a year. So that's great. So I have to
Good.
start. So I got to start finishing up with my side hustle and all that stuff. But let's go ahead and shout out to Sky Zone Society for sponsoring the show. Information at the bottom. They do hoodies. They do videography. They do photography. And what else they do, Beast?
Do fragrances as well. Makes wonderful smelling candles.
Mm. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they do it all. Sky Zone Society. The information is at the bottom, and they are a proud sponsor of today's show. So y'all know how we do. Time for us to do the opening statements, and I'm going ahead and take the lead on that if y'all don't mind. Cool. Let's go. So I want to clear up something from Wednesday's show. This is the times where y'all already know who I am. Y'all already know if I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. I would not have no shame in my game to admit when I'm wrong. But when I'm right, I will stand on it. So, with that being said, there was the first part of the show. We was talking about the Democrats and what was happening in Virginia. Brandon basically was brought up the part where Terry McCullough was saying that he was against parents having an effect or a decision on what their kids should learn. And what I said was, we don't understand what he was saying. And I actually saw one of the comments, which is a dreaded rule. Definitely, if you are a host or on the show, is to look at the comments. Because if you look at a comment that's against you, you kind of be thrown off base. But I'm not using that as an excuse. And how was portrayed was defending Terry McCullough. And because I said that I will vote for him still. Let me clear that up. I was not defending what he said. Because we cannot just say, look, you're trying to speak for a white man, but you got a lot of people that defend other people every day. Just think about it. When people are being taken out of context, because like I always say, when you put yourself out there on Jump Street, you deserve as much the rocks and the roses thrown at you. We have all defended somebody, or at least saying that this is not what they said. So remember, when you do that, they'll be throwing rocks when you live in the glass house. Now, the reason why I would still vote for Terry McCullough if I was still in Virginia wasn't because he was just a Democrat. That's a big generalization. Reason why I would still vote for him is because I don't have kids. I don't have kids that is going to that school. If I had kids that was going to the school with the education, then yeah, I probably would have some reservations on it. But people vote with different values and knowing where to put your dogs in what fights. My dog is not in the fight of education. I already got my diploma. I don't have any kids. So that's more of a fight for parents that have kids that are in the school system. That's their fight. I could give my views on it, but that's about it. But that's what I am not voting for. So that's the reason why I still would have voted for Terry McCullough. And yes, I did look that one sister up for lieutenant governor, the first Black Republican lieutenant governor, and she also served in Marines. She got a great backstory. It's great that she said that she was going to sponsor HBCUs, but then you cannot sit there and put them on a different boat when if a Democrat would have said that, you already got reservations. So what I'm saying is, let's see if she lives up to her promise and lives up to her word. Let's give them a chance. Let's give them a shot. I'm not the type to have a big grudge just because somebody from my party didn't win. If Yurkin does something for Black people, does something for the state of Virginia that is great, you guys, I have no choice. I don't think anybody have a choice but to give him props for it. If he can make Virginia great, then kudos to him. But until then, let's see you live up to all the promises that you said, as well as for the lieutenant governor. Let's see if she's going to fund the HBCUs like she said all through Virginia. Let's see. And that's all I'm saying. I was not defending Terry McCullough in no way, shape, or form. The reason why he lost was because he wasn't going to Black communities. He wasn't going to all the places that he should have been. He just ran on, we beat Trump. This is another Trump. And that's why he lost. And that's why many progressives didn't support him, which I am. So this wasn't a loss for the Democrats, for somebody on the outside looking in. It's easy to say that. This was a loss for the corporate, moderate, want to be Republican Democrats. So you can go ahead and say it's all Democrats, but let's say the shoe was on the other foot and you had that broad brush against you. Would it be fair? Would it be nice? Just something to think about before you say things, before thinking. Because if you like to put a broad brush on somebody, just know somebody's going to do it to you. And then you will know how it feels. And with that, I yield the floor.
Um, it's kind of a hard thing to talk about because it's basically been tragic, but kind of want to speak to the fellow artists and entertainers and influencers, those of us and those individuals that knowingly have a favorable, persuasive pull over others. I'm talking to you. You as well as I need to do better. I don't consider myself that, but for the sake of conversation, need to do better. For those that know of the Travis Scott situation, this is why I say this. And those of you that don't know, there was an unfortunate tragedy at a concert involving the artist Travis Scott that resulted in several tramplings and suffocations and unfortunately a confirmed death of a 10-year-old. And what makes this situation look even more tragic is the attitude and character of said artist, Travis Scott, who has multiple times carried himself in a very hazardous manner with his words, knowing that he has a high sway over his fan base. So to say that even though the show is sold out for you that did not get a ticket, well, y'all just meet up at one spot and y'all rush that motherfucker and get in. Y'all my fans, so get in, whether you pay or not. Resulting in footage of a full fence being pushed over and at least 2 dozen individuals being trampled over to get inside. Luckily, no one died in that, but it only led us to this one, which could have been avoided. Now, as a fan, you can only be so defensive and aware of your surroundings, especially when you're in a big concert event area such as that. So it's very hard to really put yourself in a safe position because it could happen from anywhere. And the last thing you expect is to have a couple hundred people behind you just say we're going to move in spite of the fact that there's still 50 of y'all in front of them. But as the artist, as the influencer, we need to be mindful of the words that we say to those that take it in intently. Can't always go with emotional knee-jerk responses and reactions because depending on the age demographic of the influenced, you're putting a lot of motherfucking risk on people's lives. And you're only furthering to have situations like this where children and young adults have their lives cut short or forever scarred because they just want to go out here with some good music and have a good time. And now they'll never really be able to listen to music or enjoy it the same way. And it shouldn't be that way. As the artist, you got to do better. You can't just be telling folk shit because it sounds cool and it's going to make motherfuckers think you cool. Because when you're out here in the real world, that shit holds a lot of weight. And you can't say somebody hacked your real life and said those things for you with a mask of you. It don't work like that. Say Facebook, say Instagram. Excuses don't work. You said that shit. You acted in that manner. Now folk dead because of it. It's too late to be sitting here trying to act all sorry and sincere and making false claims. Nah, it's too late for all that. Should have been more civilized several shows ago. Should have conducted yourself in that manner in the last recent months and years, so that that could have been cataloged, and that could have been digitized, and that could have been shown. And this could have been truly just a rare, tragic incident. But now it's just an inciting incident that was led from multiple precursor events, which only shows that if you allow it to continue, there's only going to be a massacre. No mass incident, no mass tragedy, just a massacre. And you will have no one to blame but yourself. And you cannot put the fault of blame on anyone else but yourself. Because you influenced these individuals. You led them down this path. And now you have to deal with that guilt and that remorse and that trauma as a result. So to avoid all that shit, just be very cautious about what you say. Especially when you know you got a lot of people listening. A lot of people that's going to take it as the gospel. And with that, I yield the floor.
Good evening, everyone. As a child, I was accused of living in my own world. And at the time, I didn't understand it. I felt I was a part of the world. I had dreams, goals, desires that I had to fulfill. And many times, as children, they may not share your same goals. And I was okay with that. As an adult, I find myself back into my own little world and my own little bubble. I won't judge it to say it's good or bad, but I have noticed that since the election of 2020, when they announced the new president of the United States, I actually stopped watching the news. So I'm totally oblivious to what is happening in the outside world for one whole year now. And in a way, I'm kind of okay with that. But in another sense, I realize that I have to step out of my bubble, out of my comfort zone, and become aware of what's happening politically around me. Um, it's, how could I say, it has me at a disadvantage in one sense, but it keeps me clean and purged in another sense. So, how do you strike that delicate balance between being in your bubble, working in your purpose and your mission, and also filtering the energies or the external forces around you that impact and affect you? One impact is the gas prices. I went to get gas today, and in our area, the gas price was $3.39 per gallon. Just yesterday, the gas price was $3.17 a gallon. And before I went to Cameroon, gas was less than $2 a gallon. So, that was one bubble, just simply being away from here and coming back and seeing everything, the prices have risen. So, my question to each and every one of you: how do you strike the balance of being in purpose, taking care of your business, without allowing the outside world to affect you? How much news do you take in? For me, I was fed up with the election and all the going back and forth, Democrat, Republican. And for me, it's just a hodgepodge of poo where one pits itself against the other. One is attempting to show itself to be more righteous than the other. And at the end of the day, they are all crooked. They all have their secret agenda. They all will use any ethnic group or any specialized group to their advantage to get the election. And at the end of the day, we the people are poorly serviced. So I really don't like politics, but I know it is a necessary evil. And I shut down. I guess I really, in reality, I just totally shut down, knowing that there will be changes, some negative and some positive, depending on your perspective, depending on whether you drink the the blue Kool-Aid or the red Kool-Aid. And at the end of the day, my question becomes for myself: how do you find peace in this world that lacks peace? Another thought that I have, and this may be directed to the Republican Party, on the issue of immigration. They want to paint those migrating to the United States from non European countries as rapists, crime lords, drug lords, and everything despicable. And then you hear the rhetoric: oh, the foreigners are taking our jobs. And they want to close the borders, they want to build a wall to keep undesirables out. Well, in my city, and I had an opportunity to travel down to Florida recently. So from Michigan to Florida, from the most northern state on the East Coast to the most southern state on the East Coast. When you go out shopping, you see signs on the doors that I haven't witnessed in my lifetime. And that is, we must close the store at 3:00 p.m. because there is a worker shortage. Or the store will not open before 12 noon because of a worker shortage. And we have to close early at 6 p.m. because of a worker shortage. Now, those same Republicans would like to say, well, they're just all collecting that unemployment and they don't want to go to work. Unemployment is just paying them so much money that they don't want to go to these jobs. But the reality is the unemployment money is over. So where are the people to work these jobs? Could it be that if they practice diversity just a little bit, that those Haitians that they send back could actually be working at these jobs and they can stay open the full stated hours, or they can open up on time and service the public. So we have a whole workforce of people that's ready to work. But then there's people that don't understand diversity, don't want diversity, and would do anything at any cost to not have diversity and actually cause a worker shortage. Because the truth of the matter is, these are the jobs that Americans simply will not work. And there's more jobs than there are people. So if they allow the immigrants to come and fulfill these jobs, I can go shopping. I can. And you can too. But when you're stuck at not being diverse and always seeing or creating an evil image of other people, you tend to do what my grandmother talked about, cutting off your nose to spite your face. And this is where we're at, America. We have cut off our nose to spite our face. And with that, I yield the floor.
Seemed like we all had very long opening statements. I thought it was just me, so I'm happy that everybody let a lot off their chest. First of all, something's going on with my neighbors. So if y'all see me keep looking up, I'm already letting y'all know, not only just to the panel, but everybody who's watching the show. I don't know what the heck is going on. Things are being thrown around and all that great stuff. Welcome to the show. Hey, what's up? So I want to touch on the points that y'all made real quick, and then we're gonna get to what Cheech got something very important that she wanted to talk about. She actually sent it in the group because, like I said, forgive me if I continue looking up. So on Teach's part, I cannot say any more than that. I mean, even after the elections, I still was watching the news or staying up to date on what's going on, and unfortunately, all the things like I always said, when President Biden won and the Democrats took over in Congress, these organizations that helped them get there, it's their job to pressure them, to pressure President Biden. Hey, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you to do
Stay
this.
on their ass.
And they haven't. I mean, you got to call a spade a spade. They haven't. And so I don't think when you look at the Republicans, when they was taking over, people got to understand, you was hearing all those things about, well, the Republicans got this going on. They say they want to do this for black people, want to do that for black people. But you got to look at their track record. Have they ever done anything for black folks? Even when they had control of Congress, they didn't do anything. But they had their donors and had their groups that put them in and having all these things happen for them. So that's the one on your point, Teach. And then also for Bees, that was one of the things that I really wanted to talk about. What happened at that Travis Scott concert. But then again, I think it's karma for him because all the things that he was told about. Did you care about Black Lives Matter? What's your position? And he was on that All Lives Matter tip, and look what happened. Because
that and he got him on camera like being a dick.
Yeah,
it's like you can't say that because you on camera, bro.
Right, and it's just, I mean, it's just sad that you have something like that happening, and even for the people that was in the audience when they were trying to get the ambulance and all that stuff to the people, the crowd was still jumping on the freaking they was jumping on the freaking ambulances and dancing like it ain't no thing. And that's avoidable. It was avoidable, but I think it's karma for Travis Scott because just because you got a billionaire has a freaking girlfriend that we can tell that you not girlfriend, wife. I don't know if they're married or whatever. I'm talking about Kendall, not Kendall, but the other Jenner. Even though he looks like every time he take a picture with her, he look like he's trapped, like he's not going nowhere because we got a kid together, and I think she's pregnant again. And
Of course, they don't know.
yeah, and he had this issue happening. This is something that was avoidable. This is why you have a briefing before you do anything. How good is your security team? If this happened, then what? If this happens, then what? The risk assessment, it seemed like they didn't do no risk assessments at all. It was basically we have this great security team and they're gonna do whatever and blah 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 whoop whoop. Good.
Well, no, it was basically like I said he was on that bull. There was another show prior to this where he was just there's no other word, just a dick to one of the event workers who happened to be on stage. Like, this is my stage, I run this. Like, me and my people was on there. Cut to another show where he's on social media telling fans, just rush the stage, just rush the show.
That's yeah.
This is on you, dude. You gotta take this.
This is on him. But yeah, let's go ahead and put this screen up for Teach. Teach want to talk about it. Hopefully that's more clear. Hopefully I can make that a little bit bigger. Let me go ahead. Hope that helps, Teach. But Teach, tell everybody about this message that you sent in the group.
Okay, I find it very disturbing, and this is really a clapback on why critical race theory is so important to be taught in the school system. Um, this is actually from a textbook in Louisiana. And I believe I have mentioned this several times. Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, they're the forerunners in revisionist history, meaning that they rewrite it the way they want it to be, which is psychologically damaging, and it's just a straight up lie. So this was a test. I did not get the name of the textbook, but this is a question, and obviously they're going over um, slavery in the colonies. So it's asking the question, and this is for a fifth grade class. Why were slaves used in the American colonies to perform labor? A, there were no jobs for slaves in Africa. B, slaves were the best workers. C, there were not enough workers. D, it was illegal for other people to do work. So, thinking about this question from the perspective of a fifth grader that's learning for the first time, even that student could not come up with an answer that seemed right, not even knowing the true history. So as an adult, I ask you, who may have had a class on slavery in the colonies, which answer would you pick?
None.
None. None of the above.
Damn right. Damn right, cause none.
None of the above. And this is the
I wrote that
problem.
in there.
This is the problem, an example of a wider problem of revisionist history, of twisting history to make it seem less than what it was. Okay, let's examine question A. There were no jobs for slaves in Africa. What
Yeah, I'm
kind
done
of
after I saw that also.
option is that? There were no jobs for slaves in Africa. So if we just leave out the last two words, in Africa, there was no jobs for slaves. First and
There,
foremost, the men and women and children that were held captive against their will, they were Africans. More specifically, they were Ibu, Dinkshira, Brung, Hausa, Akan, people. These were people. They were not slaves in Africa. In Africa, they were kings and queens, princes and princesses, and common people that belong to a specific society with a specific government, with specific culture, with a specific language. So to say that there were no jobs for slaves in Africa, so was slavery salvation for the African slave? So we have to understand how psychologically damaging when the truth is not taught. Why were slaves used in American colonies to perform labor? Give me a guess that seems more plausible.
That's sheesh. Teach, to be honest, and this is what you was talking about on Wednesday for anybody. Which later in the show I'm gonna get Beast tape because he was having technical difficulties. But this was the big hot spots, hot topics from Wednesday, uh, where Teach, this is what you was talking about, and here's the proof right here. And I kind of, well, I won't say we touched on this part of like the self reliance, you got to build up the self, you got to put yourself up on the bootstraps, and we need to stop talking about slavery when you still got white folks in the South that still carry the rebel flag because they're not over the loss of the Civil War. But we have to get over not only just slavery, but get over us being treated,
everything.
treated as three-fifths as a human being, and how people got killed for us just to freaking vote or just to exist. And I think when we forget about that history, things like this happens. And the crazy thing is, I think we just do. I'm sorry, I'm just so distracted with the noise happening right here, kind of lose the train of thought. But what I'm saying is, this is why you don't forget about your history, because you do got to keep it a buck. We do got our brothers and sisters that are naive about this shit.
Yes,
They
they are.
just they just think that if we can do for self, that it's gonna magically disappear all of this. Like racism, it's happening, but it's not happening to me.
Right. And
It's like goes back to what you were saying, Teach, that bubble. But go on ahead.
right. So um people like that, they would find an answer here. They would think that there is a legitimate answer within these four options. And there is no answer within these options. The best answer would be E, none of the above. But let's look at B. Slaves were the best workers.
let me go ahead and jump on
No,
that,
no,
Beast. Beast, let me go ahead. Let me just say. I just want to say this, and then you can go, and then I'm gonna tag you in. B is this. Tell me that they were niggers without telling me that they were niggers. That's the vibe that I get from B. But go ahead, Beast. I just wanted to say that.
how many cousins you gotta fuck for that shit to make sense to you? Any of this, any of them, any of those statements. Like I know folk that went to schools like this on the West Coast that honestly didn't know about racism in the South.
Yes.
And even they know better than to look at this shit like, oh well, maybe no. None of those choices. None of it. All right. Oh,
Okay, let's go on to C.
it just insults the intelligence of everyone involved. Well,
Go
please,
ahead, G.
please, teach, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, let me go back to B. So slaves were the best workers. Let's consider that if that is a correct answer. Look at the psychology. Not Africans were the best
Yeah, I was about to say
workers,
that.
but slaves were the best workers. Okay. But let's look at why a person could reasonably think that that could be a good answer. Because you had the forerunners, Charles Darwin,
Mm.
and his theory of evolution and his critical race scientific theory that blacks were inferior and that it was the Caucasian brain that was the mind and it was the black body that performed the labor. So they had a
What you call it?
whole body of literature to support why slaves were the best workers. So an illiterate person, not well versed in history, could easily come and believe that B is the best answer. Then we go on to C. There were not enough workers. Okay? So what does it say? If we understand the history of the colonies, we know the first two shiploads of the pilgrims starved and died because they lacked the skills to survive. They came and made enemies with the Indians or the natives, I'm sorry, instead of joining hands and learning how to survive in a new land. And it was not until that third shipment that they stopped by Africa and picked up some Africans and brought them with them that they would be able to build that very first colony and begin to survive. So, if they somewhat knew that history, C actually could be the right answer because they needed a workforce. And the hundred and so people that they brought over on the boat, Caucasian people, was not enough to work and clear the land and to create a living and a mode of survival. Now, D, it was illegal for other people to do work. It was illegal for other people to do work. during the building of the colonies, there was a call where they would actually pay your way by a ship and guarantee you a job once you got into the colonies. And you would have to work for 7 years, and then you could be free. So America wasn't really into paying anybody to do any work. So as an indentured servant, if you were a criminal, rapist, a drug lord, all the distasteful characteristics that they heap upon immigrants, if you were that kind of immigrant coming from Europe, you could come over and finish off your sentence voluntarily by going into the Americas. So these are the illegal people that could not work for a salary. So again, depending on how you have been educated, D could be a good answer. But all in all four of the answers are very faulty. And this is why I, as an educator, feel that it's necessary, because it's BS like this. Now, I'm going to break this down. This book has several editors, has several authors. Every time a copy of it is sold, everybody get paid. They're making money off of miseducating the populations. And this is with the purpose. It's not haphazard. It's not, oh, we just made a mistake. They're trying to frame the mind that slavery was not the harsh institution that it was, psychologically, financially, and socially. For the African, they're trying to wash away that post-traumatic syndrome that African Americans have suffered from generation to generation to generation. So when you can twist or rewrite and create a revisionist view of history, the person that created it is thinking, I can create a society where Black people don't know that they're hurting. The reason why they feel that they're hurting is because they were told that their ancestors were slaves. And at the same time, for little Billy and Heather, they don't have to feel guilty if they are still living off of the wealth that their forefathers created. They don't have to feel guilty about that money. So we're going to create history in a way that everybody can get along. Red flag. I call BS all day long. And this is why, for no other reason, critical race theory is important. We wouldn't even have to have critical race theory if those that wrote history would simply write it correctly and write it in balance. But when you're trying to create an image of harmlessness, if there is no harm, there is no foul. And these students that are taught this When they get 18, 22, and get into the political arena, they're speaking from what they have been taught. There were no jobs for slaves in America. Therefore, America opened up its arms and allowed the slaves to work freely in America.
Yeah. And
So
It's true.
they would be the ones that look like you and I to say, hey, there's no need for reparations. There was no harm. America gave those people jobs. America fed them. The
Really.
plantation owners gave them housing, gave them one new piece of clothing a year. What is their complaint? Why are they crying? You see how psychologically damaging? If you were taught this and you believe it, but when you're 5 years, I mean, when you're 9 and 10 years old, you're going to believe this because what? We believe our teachers.
We're
So
taught
they
to.
understand the concept of destroying knowledge when that child is young.
Teach all the things that you said. Just it hits it on the head, and once again, it starts with us.
It does.
I'm sorry. Hopefully y'all not hearing all this stuff that I'm hearing to the point where I'm about to go up there and just be like, yo, what's going on, because it's very distracting. But like you were saying, Teach, this is why you need critical race theory. This is why you need to be taught. And it always starts with us. We always, once again, we have those naive Negroes. They are the ones that sit there saying, well, you know what? Anybody remember the movie Hollywood Shuffle?
Mm-hmm.
I
Anybody
remember the movie.
You
Yes.
remember the part where Robert Townsend was playing the slave, when they was showing how the white people was telling him how to act black, and it was the one part he was pretending to be the house Negro, and he was like, man, I don't know where y'all all leaving. You know, the master dresses us good, he feeds us well, and all that stuff. And that's all I was thinking when Teach was bringing up the point that it would be us that would look at this and be like, yeah, you know, there's nothing wrong with this question. Just go ahead and still answer it and pretend like none of this mess happened, because you got a great job, you got a great family, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. America is the best place to be. I wouldn't be nowhere else. Those types. And even for me that love this country, I got a freaking United States flag that I got from when I was in Kentucky, where I did a my very first Veteran Day parade march, where I marched with fellow veterans and went down the freaking street. So, and still can say that there's issues of racism in this country.
Yes.
And I mean, and it's sad that we try to use our personal success and be in that bubble. What Cheech was saying in her in the opening statements, that we live in this bubble, which I can also relate to what Beach was saying about Travis Scott. They just think they live in this bubble that they don't see what we see as black folks. Like, they just got this reinforced shield because I'm an artist and people gonna see me as an artist. They're not gonna see me as a black artist because I made it to this plateau where racism don't have no effect on me. Because remember what happened to ASAP Rocky? ASAP Rocky was like, hey man, I'm not on that Black Lives Matter and what's going on in the world, because I'm banging all sorts of different race of chicks. Because
I'm a fashion man.
Yeah.
And he was like,
I'm over here.
I like Balenciagas. And
Mhm.
Ferragamas, ignorant black folk can't say those words. I say them correctly. I'm not like them.
Right. And
You show sat in
you
jail like us.
right. And so when ASAP Rocky was saying all that mess, and then he finally got in trouble in France because what a cop racially profiled him, and he was sitting there saying, "Yo, you know who I am? You know who I am? I guarantee you." Those French police officers knew who he was. They just knew they could do it because they're gonna do it anyway because you're black. And people also
And
gotta understand. Yeah, go ahead, teach.
you go ahead.
Yeah, and people gotta understand racism is not just happening here in the States. It's also happening across the
Wherever
pond.
Caucasian people dwell.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
And the
and
area you talking about down there was in Sweden. And the only
Sweden, it
reason I
was
remember that is
right.
because Snoop Dogg had a similar. It is. I didn't know that at that time, but it's like a well-known thing amongst melanated musicians that there's an area that is pretty much like the definitive Aryan playground. Like they love you they love you for your endeavors, but as soon as that's said and done, kindly and expeditiously get your black ass from around here quickly.
Right.
Like they literally showed this man on stage saying, "I love y'all, Sweden. Show so much love. Y'all want me to come back? Yeah, step down, step down." And in less than 3 hours, this nigga was like, "I'm being arrested by Swedish police." And then cut to him, man, fuck Sweden. I ain't never coming back to this motherfucker ever again.
Yeah, and and if you can bring all that back to here to the States, they just think your success is gonna exclude everything about what is
Nope.
going on. And speaking of what's going on, oh my gosh.
I think I heard it that time.
Yeah, I, it is just lose my chain of thought of what I want to say. But okay, let me
Look, what you just need to do is you just need to go old school, get you a broom, bang, bang, bang.
I did
Either
that
take 10 paces or 2 bullets and stop this shit.
I did that last night and looked like I'm about to do that mess again. But like I was saying, so basically what I'm saying is, I wish Brandon was here on the show because he was preaching, if we do self-reliance, that we're gonna be okay, and that's what we're doing, and black people will be all right if we stop submitting to the Democrat Party. That's not even the case. That's not even the point. Even if that was going on, you saw what happened with the Black Wall Streets when we tried that. You saw what happened. Because when you take your go ahead.
No, go right. Finish your statement. Finish.
Yes. So you saw what happened. We talked about this, about the Black Wall Street. I say the reason why what happened with them, if they knowing that majority of the communities were full of veterans, they should have had their own little militia and not keep their eyes off the enemy. I'm not saying all white people are enemies, but knowing that majority of the white folks didn't like them, and knowing that if anything pops off, that they would have been ready. They just thought that since we got our own success going on here, we don't need to worry about that. And then what happened in the freaking elevator about a girl getting raped, you had what happened in Tulsa, which led to Red Summer. Look what happened.
Historically, we should just never listen. Unfortunately, history has shown us that white women lie.
Yeah.
A lot.
But they don't believe it. White women is a black man's kryptonite. So
no.
That's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother
I know
show.
we ain't talking about just us. We ain't talking about just us. Like, historically speaking,
yeah,
across all races, if a white woman say some shit, a whole generations of people are forever tarnished. I always use the example of Helena of Troy. She said some shit and convinced this man to send a nation of other men to go get her. Donnell, Imagine your woman tell you some shit that spurs you and sends you with so much fury and masculinity that you convince your military superiors to unleash several battalions worth of men to said location to do her bidding.
Oh,
Yeah. See, when you say it like that, it don't sound so cheery and historical. It sounds like, damn, that's a crazy line bitch right there. And he dumb as fuck for believing.
Right.
and you realize
But
all
that's
your
what
tax
happens.
dollars.
That's an
Yeah.
excellent
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mhm.
But I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
make a statement about Brandon's push on self-reliance. I agree to this extent in self-reliance. And this is another reason why you need to know history. Because Booker T. Washington was the proponent of self-reliance.
That
Basically,
he
he said, if
was.
you get into business and you handle your business and you get your money, the white man is going to respect you. He said, do not argue or agitate for civil rights. What did Brandon say? I'm not for Black Lives Matter. So these things kind of go hand in hand. But the problem is this: when you think that you don't need to know the history, you are bound to repeat it, the good and the bad. So it's good to be self-reliant, but if we don't take the history of Black Wall Street, Rosewood, Redwood,
Mhm.
Douglas
okay,
Town, Central Park.
right, we don't take the history of these cities where blacks were handling their business, you forget that you have an adversary that's sitting on the sidelines, that's waiting for the moment to pounce on you. That is the major fault of not knowing your history. Yes, you can be self-reliant. Guess what? Right after slavery, that was the greatest time up into what the 60s or 70s. African Americans
Yeah.
were nothing but self-reliant because slavery was over. Okay? Slavery
You
was
dealt with
over.
ourselves.
And if you were going to make it, you made it however you could. Being a sharecropper, being a cook, a trained porter, okay? What is that? Blacksmith,
Mhm.
a carpenter, whatever have you. George Washington Carver making peanuts and all types of products from these peanuts. We were nothing but self-reliant until integration. When integration came, that's when we left our businesses and began to get jobs, because finally the United States of America said in 1964 Civil Rights Act that they would no longer practice discrimination. So we've always been self-reliant.
Publicly.
Self-reliance, but if you think self-reliance is a new concept, that means you don't know your history.
Yeah.
And that is the fault of a branch that thinks it has no trunk, or a branch that thinks that it can just start in the middle of the air.
Mhm.
And you
Well,
have
it's,
no
it's, it's,
trunk and you have no roots.
Yeah.
it's that old simple country logic. How you gonna know where you at and where you're going if you don't know where you're being? You fuck around and
Mhm.
end up going in circles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with self-reliance. There's nothing wrong. But don't think, and this is the problem with, you say this Travis Smith person. I really don't. I'm in a real bubble. I have no idea who this person is. And
Do not feel bad.
I've heard
No.
the a little bit of there was a concert and some people got killed. But It didn't mean anything to me, so I didn't look into it. So this is the most information that I have gotten about this. But this is the thing about entertainers. They become great in their black skin. And once they reach a threshold of a certain amount of money, somehow they think money erases racism. Money does not erase racism. Ask Black Wall
Because
Street.
not everybody, if everybody had money and complete access to money, then yes, racism would not be an issue. But as long as you got more money than me and vice versa on any given day, um, yeah, your skin color still comes to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I would suggest to anyone, you want to move as an individual, that's fine.
Hmm.
Move as an individual, be self-reliant. That's what we all need. Be that model that other people can look up to. But don't be foolish enough to think that once you reach a certain threshold, that all of a sudden you're going to get a respect that your father didn't have, that
Mhm.
his father didn't have, that his father didn't have, that his father didn't have, that his father didn't have. You're not going to create a new paradigm because you have not addressed the issue of racism. Racism is not, oh, I just don't like your black skin. Racism is a system of survival.
Yeah.
And when you
Hmm.
understand, it's not it's not really even personal. When I talked about Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution, look at it as reverse projectionism. He said that
Hmm.
don't allow or give a person a tool to survive except they survive. Don't help them to survive. If they will survive, there's proof that they were meant to survive. But when you look at it, and his theory, he did the whole scale of the Caucasian, the Asian, the Mongoloid, and he went through all the Lloyds and the Negroid, and put them on a scale of intelligent, and white being the most intelligent and the black being the least intelligent, the white being the greatest survivor and the blacks being the least survivor. But return that around. It was the Europeans that were suffering from four conditions. One, their ground was not yielding food, so they were facing starvation and dying. Two, they were being ravaged by sickness and disease, the black plague, the yellow plague. It was taking their numbers. Three, they're warlike people. They were killing people faster than they were, number four, birthing people. So these four issues created racism. They had to go out and find another way to survive. And that's when they went through what they call the age of discovery, came to Africa like, woo,
There's some
one,
darker folk than us around here.
one,
Mhm.
these people have food. Two, they're breeding like what they say, rabbits, right? Three, they're hardy people. They're not given to sickness and disease. And four, oh, when they go to war, they don't even shed blood. So you have these four opposing reasons that once the European figured out how to capture
That's,
the
that's so.
African, they switched it around. And now you hear on TV that the Africans are starving to death. Oh, they have Ebola. They're sick and they're dying. Oh, well, we're still trying to work on that fertility thing because they're still having too many babies. And oh, Africans are warring.
Mm.
You see, that's that reverse. projection
Jedi mind trick. Jedi mind
We
Okay.
call
trick.
it transference.
Yes.
Transference.
No, they project that onto the African
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they were suffering when they were in Europe. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the core and the crux of racism. This was their form of survival because they had to take the labor and the food and the skill and the knowledge and the wisdom and the medicine and the minerals out of Africa in order for them to survive in America and for the first time create a wealth that they had never seen in Europe. It's a
Mm-hmm.
misnomer. It's a misnomer. Everybody, oh, white is right, white is wealthy, this, that, and the other. Europe did not become wealthy until the slave trade. The slave trade was their ticket to wealth. The slave trade was their ticket to a ham sandwich.
Mm.
The slave trade was
Question.
their ticket to health, the
Mm-hmm.
roots and the herbs and the medicines. But the slave trade did not teach them what I talked about last Wednesday, that conflict resolution. And
No.
they're not gonna get that lesson. They're gonna kill you
Mm-hmm.
in the name of their God, in the name of their righteousness, and what
Mm.
they call manifest destiny. So be self-reliant, but know your history. Know who your adversary is and how he's studying you and making his
Mm-hmm.
plan to utterly annihilate you.
Mm. Then Cheech, in the words of Beast,
And,
say it loud for the person in the back. But go ahead, Beast.
and the question I just got for Teach is for everybody asking for those that be like, well, white is right, white is wealth. Then why is it in business a business does not show profit until it's in the black? Correct?
That
Yes,
is
this is
When
correct.
it comes to
yes.
business, if you're in the red, you're in debt. But if you're in the black, you're in the money. You're in the
Mm-hmm.
money. You got a lot of what it takes to get along. Am I
Mm-hmm.
wrong or am I right?
You're right.
I know
You're
they change it.
absolutely
They
right.
change the stuff around every day.
Look,
So no,
look.
I'm going off old world knowledge right now. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So I'm still correct.
Yeah. So
Just
Beast, you should have said more like, "Am I right or am I right?" Because
no,
you
no.
because you're exactly right. I mean, look at social media. I mean, to tell you the truth, and look at Twitter. Who talks about there's different, Twitter spheres in Twitter. You got wrestling, you got gaming, you got,
You got Black Twitter, which is the
exercise. And that's the
gods
point.
Twitter.
And that's what my point is. Black Twitter, even though it's not a place in Twitter, but they make Twitter what it is because they keep the trends going. Even with political freaking Twitter doesn't hold a torch to Black Twitter. Look at TikTok. Look at all these dances. You do not see no other folks coming up with these dances other than Black TikTokers. Me and
Oh
Beach,
yeah.
we actually talked about this Teach, and for anybody who rocked with us a long way, who remember we talked about the Black TikTokers taking a break. Well, not taking a break, going on strike was because you had a lot of the white YouTubers taking credit for the dances and the trends that they were creating and was not getting no credit or no monetary gains from it. All the white TikTokers that
Mm-hmm.
basically stole their style, stole their trends, stole their dances were going on shows, getting sponsorships, getting a lot of money out the deal. At least you could do is give the credit to where credit's due. And when they took the break, they couldn't even figure out nothing to do. Like it was a song by Megan Thee Stallion. I think it's like goes hands and knees and all that stuff. Because everybody was waiting for the next dance for that. Black TikTokers were like, nope. Y'all figure it out on your own. And TikTok went through it. I think they still on strike. I think, but still, it
No, because
just
they
goes
they
back.
they getting paid. They're getting paid from there. The first ones that started the main dances, they've been getting
Mhm.
paid like 2 or 3 black trend content creators. In the sense of you see their efforts on every other facet of social media, they're finally getting compensated, but you still don't get the just due.
Right.
So
No
once again,
credit.
content creators, Wet Network,
Wet network.
come fuck with your boy. We
There's
love
two
everybody.
things. Two things I
Go
would
ahead,
like to
teach.
say to what you all just said. One, um, I live in this bubble. I am. When they spoke of Black Twitter, I really thought it was another site or another app. You
Technically,
know,
it is, but it's
It
like a
is. It
subset
is. Yeah.
at this point.
TikTok is its own.
no,
Yeah.
no, Black
TikTok.
Twitter, not
No,
TikTok,
Black
but
Twitter.
Black Twitter.
Oh, Black Twitter. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's his own
Yeah.
Twitter
And
sphere.
then
Yeah.
then the second thing is that's the way it always is.
Hmm.
Um, Today I got a flag from Facebook, and if you see on my page, I had a little rant that I snapped back. Um, I took down the post, and I shouldn't have, but I took it down, and it was on Dr. Herbert Smitherman. He had a PhD. He was a chemist. He worked for Procter and Gamble, and he has all these patents for things like Crest toothpaste, different soaps and whatnot, things that we use in our everyday lives. And they tagged it and said, "This is partly false information, and
Oh.
if you keep
Mhm.
posting this kind of stuff in your group, we're going to change your algorithm so nobody can see your posts in this group." And so I just said, hey, I just deleted it. Then I thought about it. I went ahead and I Googled him and went to several different sites. And I think it was in 2015, this museum, I believe in Alabama, I think,
Oh. Bama.
had a
That's
had a total exhibit, had a total exhibit on this man and the products that he had patented, and they had listed the very same items. So I snapped back, hey, if you're gonna fact check, make sure you're going into the archives, encyclopedias, obituaries, and
Mhm.
other sources and find your information. And also, if you're going to do your job, don't be high off of drugs. And if you find that you have racism blowing, going through your veins, check yourself for allowing that poison,
yeah.
because
Mhm.
you tagged my post utterly in error, giving my viewers the thought that this is bogus information. And there was nothing bogus about my post.
Craziness. And see, this is why I joined fan base, and fan base is another is an app that is actually owned by a black person. It's Isaac Hayes Jr. Obviously, it's Isaac Hayes' son that started fan base, and I encourage anybody
Salute
and
to.
everybody. I encourage anybody and everybody to join that app. A lot of the people from TikTok has been joining. So there are social medias out there. And this is what I want with the Wet Network. That's what me and Beast want with the Wet Network, where you have content creators that actually have control of their content and they get the right money and the right publicity for their stuff. But I also encourage anybody else to create something that we don't have to worry about this anymore. Now I understand. I do, like I said, I do give props um, to Facebook for for stopping the fake news and all that stuff. But then you have people like yourself, Teach, that will be just what do we call them more? You just a bystander, an innocent bystander that gets hit for absolutely no reason. And which goes back to the point of we need a place of our own. We do need a place where we are not censored, that we can be free to say what we say. But we also have to understand that Facebook is a private entity, and I think they changed the name to what, Meta or something like that. But yeah.
Well, that's the new thing. They're IPO. They have stocks, so they have a board.
Yeah.
This is rebranding. This is let's get Zuckerberg's fuck face as far away from this as we can. Let's try it under a different thing, because now they're kind of trying to go Nintendo Wish, where you build avatars that can interact on and off with other people. And
so they're going back to before Facebook, when the internet was anonymous.
Yeah, basically.
Well, no. Well, it's that kind of feel, but where it's more like we're having this set up right now. Only one of us would actually be here. One of us will be replaced with an avatar. And yeah, that's kind of the idea that they're trying to go for, where you can interact, internet, digital, and in real life. It sounds like a whole bunch of silliness, to be honest with you. Like I've seen
it's an optical illusion. It's that three-card Monty. Which card is it under? Which one is real? Which is the real?
Yeah, because because what Facebook is trying to be the first social media stream to incorporate VR and AR, which is augmented reality, and that's kind of like what the PlayStation is really doing the hardest. You got your little VR goggles, making everything immersed, making it like you're there when you're not there.
Right. That's true.
And Facebook is trying to now adopt that into the social media spectrum.
So I'm just going to try to bring us back on track with Teach, with the celebrities and all that stuff. But wait, you was about to say something, Teach?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you remember our guest, Mr. Joe Williams, that built the server. So that's what he was talking about. He has his own server. He can set you up and, launch your stuff from him. And that's the thing is that I have to say, we don't believe ourselves enough to invest in each other. We always gravitate to someone else. They burn us, then we get mad. He has a product that could really be big, but it's still in the mom and pop stage.
And see, the thing is, me and Beast been talking about this. Remember this, Beast? Remember we had that talk about bringing him back on the show?
Yeah, it's trying to incorporate him back
on the show. Yeah.
And it's funny, T said that too, because she brought a good point. Article I seen where they was posing the what's the Black Panther movie that just came out? The Judas, or what I'm talking about? The assassin
versus the Messiah. Judas versus the Messiah.
And it's that whole complex of how there's even amongst each other, there's always going to be a division of ideologies. And because of that situation and it happening to such a vital point and part of American Black culture, we kind of eyeball each other now. It's like, I can't put but so much faith in you, because I feel like either you lying to me or you trying to hustle me. That's why Black folk don't really get behind you until other races start fucking with you, and especially other races that they respect. If whites and Asians and Jews respect you and fuck with you, then the hood would start taking you a little more serious.
Yeah. But yeah, Teach, we want him to come back on the show. If you can reach out to him, we would love to have him back on the show. And we also want to do something with him pertaining to the Wet Network too, as well. And so, and happily get his business out there, and also to talk about, tech to that young person or that person that's trying to start their own teching server business. I would love for him to come back on the show. So with all that being said, so and this is going to be the last part of the show because I kind of went over. I apologize. Um, Beast, you had troubles getting on the show on Wednesday because you had technical difficulties and stuff. I want to get your take on what you seen on the show. If you was on, what you would
Yeah.
have said, because as you saw, it was all Cheech and Brandon on the whole entire show that I ended up ripping my notes on my freaking
No,
cue card.
that's why I say with him, he needs that opposing energy because he does make some good points, but he's very he comes off very boisterous, and that's what kind of goes back into that whole point I make of perceptive image. You see a big dude talk like that, with that type of energy, that passion is always can easily be misinterpreted for something more aggressive or malicious. So some things he says do make good points, but he needs somebody to bounce off of to find a common ground in the middle that everybody can truly get behind and like truly take something away from instead
So
of
what?
just just the intelligent rants of an individual.
Right. So what did you if you was on the show, what would you have asked him or would have talked to him about if you was on the show?
Well, like going back to the point of him just being like self-reliant, I'll bring up like the point I brought up today, just in this era, because I often get confused when individuals say stuff like that. Because, like T says, those are individuals that don't have a good foundational knowledge of their history. But they're also the same individuals that talk with this nostalgic like sentiment. Like they're trying to find a time or an era where what they thought and felt was the norm. But you don't really know where you're coming from. So it's like in this era, how can we really be self-sufficient? Even from a political standpoint, because I've asked the same questions to Sequay. If we were to do this now, how could we truly organize that? Because you're taking westernized individuals and trying to get them to adapt to something different. It's a reason why America is called westernized when it comes to the cultural influence and impact on other nations and other civilizations. So how can you really be self-sufficient in this day and age? Even if we say, yeah, get the land, get the viable resources and necessities to be self-sufficient and self-sustained in the sense of feeding and clothing and sheltering ourselves. But what then?
Right.
How do you plan to stay self-sufficient and self-contained in a very open world that we live in now?
Yeah.
It is very possible, but the point that I think I was attempting to make but didn't get it out is about closed societies. And I think I remember Brandon made a reaction when I said, Malcolm X as well as W.E.B. Du Bois talked about closed societies. Well, we have a modern day fictional idea of a closed society called Wakanda. And in the
Yes.
fictional movie of the Black Panther, it works and it can work. And we have evidences around these United States of America of closed societies that works. But in the mind of the African, we came from that plantation. That's part of this post-traumatic stress syndrome. You're not gonna get me hemmed up on a piece of land somewhere away from everybody. We already experienced that. So we're not so willing to experience or dabble with a closed society in that sense. And that was the draw away or the draw away from Seepaway's plan of modern his society after the Native Americans. They live on reservations. What are those? But closed societies. On a piece of land, and they probably you remember the movie Life, and
Yep.
they said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's no gates around this prison, but if you go across that
We got
yard,
a
you get
gun
shot.
now.
Okay, and
We
that's
don't
what
need
goes
no
in our
pieces.
mind. That's
Yeah.
what goes in our mind. It might
Mm-hmm.
not be a fence around it, but if I get over there, I can't get back.
Right.
That's part of that post-traumatic stress syndrome. And so uh, we don't do good with that.
Right.
We don't do good with that because they have tried it over the years. That's why I'm saying, you don't need history. Oh yeah, history already showed us black folks don't like that. Black folks will not gravitate to that.
No,
Black folks
it's
are barely staying in the black folks neighborhood.
right.
They're barely.
That's true. That's true.
So history
Mm-hmm.
teaches us these things.
It's
So
yeah. I'm sorry, Cheech. Go ahead.
that's it.
Yeah, it's like getting into a buying the car off a freaking like Craigslist and not looking at the Carfax and just going and the
That's
dude's just like, hey,
just
here's the car, got gas in it and everything, and not understand that this car had been into 2 accidents, had 3 engine failures, the
yeah, that ain't
freaking
gonna work.
cellular shot, the freaking headlights work when it wants to. Every time you try to turn the signal, like the freaking windshield wipers turn on. It's like you got to know the history of with everything, and definitely when
Yes.
somebody sells you a freaking car, you want the Carfax or them to tell you, okay, what's the history with this vehicle? Because right now it look all nice and sparkly, got the dings and
What's
whistles
wrong with
shining
it?
and all
But
that
will it
stuff.
make it to the end of the driveway?
Right.
Like,
You
like,
know, I
like
want
she
to know, okay,
pretty. She pretty. How crazy is she?
right. You
That's
gotta
not
know.
even fair. I object to that.
The track
Oh,
record.
look, just switch the roles. Damn, like damn, he sexy. He fine.
Do we
That
have a
nigga ain't
job?
shit. There you go. That
That's wrong.
nigga ain't
There
shit.
you go. That's wrong. But yeah, you're right. You're right. It's track record. If you don't know the track record, then why the freak are you either getting involved or why are you buying it? You
Why you wasting your time and energy?
right. Because that's the first question that should be is, just seeing the Carfax commercial. Like when I hear self-reliance, all I'm seeing is that freaking Fox, show me the Carfax. And that's critical race theory. It's
You should
like
have went and got a Carfax.
right. And that's the thing. And I know I kept y'all up a little bit too long. So let's go ahead and hit on the our final points of the show. Once again, I want to publicly say this to the both of y'all, even though Bish, you had technical difficulties. That's why I was getting your side of it if you was on the show. Thank y'all. Teach, like I said, once again, it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good being back.
Beats, me and Beats, we held the fort. We held it down. Mayo, I wish Mayo was on for that show because he knows more about the Democrat Party than me. Even though I'm a
He's
progressive Democrat,
political.
right? He he's in the show, and I honestly would think that now you got three big personalities going at it, and so it would have been great if he was up on there. But then also, I'm going to slap my hand on that one too. I should have been much more prepared for that part. But it happens. We slip and we get those unexpected situations where, oh snap, I wasn't fully prepared, fully ready. But still, Wednesday was a great show. Brandon was a great host. He brought his points up on there. There's some points that I agree with, and then there was some points that I disagreed with him on. And main part was the Democrat part, which I corrected
That ain't a
myself.
conversation. That ain't a conversation. Let's be real. Have you ever enjoyed a conversation where you and the other party just agreed on everything?
That's true. And it's great that he brought his view on here that was very different than everybody else's. And that's what this platform is. We want to have people of different views come up on here and we can sit down and discuss. There was no disrespect. There was no disrespect to Cheech. Cheech did disrespect him. And Brandon said the same thing. My first thing is, and I think we can all agree, is that our guest is comfortable. And I believe we made him more than comfortable, So I'm still extending the invitation to Brandon to come on the show. But just like when Cheech was over there in Africa, the time zones is way too out there. So I'm gonna wait until he comes
Handle
down.
yourself first.
He's in Kenya too. He's 8 hours. Yeah. But
yes.
That would be what?
Yeah.
13 hours for you.
So
yeah,
so right now it's probably what nighttime over there, or not
it's just too much math right now. That's all I know. Too much math right now.
So
it will take 12 hours. If it's 12 noon for you, it's 12 midnight for him.
So if that's the case, it is now 10 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning. Well,
right.
for me.
For Donnell.
So we're just gonna So we're just going to wait until he comes back home to California, and then we can have part 2. And this time, hopefully, Beast do not have any technical difficulties, and hopefully Mayo will join us to the show, because right now he's in Africa too. He's back in Nigeria. But let's go ahead and get with our final points. Teach, I'm gonna go ahead and start with you. Do you have anything else before we head on out?
I just want to do maybe a couple of African proverbs.
Okay.
That says that a tree without roots. I don't know, something about the tree without roots. I'm having a brain fog. I'm sorry. Or a zebra without stripes is not a zebra. I don't know. Oh my God, I'm messing them all up. But basically, what I'm saying is you have to have a foundation. No matter what position you stand, you have to have a foundation and verifiable history, because it's this history that keeps us on alert. It's this history that keeps our mind sharp to the possibilities of what if. And you plan, like you said, with Black Wall Street, they were about their business, but they didn't build a little militia that could defend themselves. So if you're going to be self-reliant, you're going to build that little community. I always talked about what that little city or village for 150 square miles or feet or whatever. And you can incorporate, 2 square miles, you can incorporate and you can begin to build. But even in building that, you want to build a militia to protect yourself, to protect your community, or at least an angel guard. When you're in the community, you have people to look out for the community. So it's these things that you coming from the new age, don't want to do the things the way the old people do. I believe in standing on the shoulders of giants, because their experience teaches me. But if I'm just out there in the wind, I'm just out there in the wind.
Right. All right. Beach, you got anything?
My final point is this. like kind of like teach, no matter how far we progress in life, no matter how far we advance, we will never get rid of the ways of old because those are the foundation. And the more we distance ourselves from it, they go from being the foundation to the integral part down to your DNA. You do it because you were taught to do it because the folk before you were taught to do it because the folk before them was taught to do it. It's just ingrained in everyone's genetic code at that point. So it becomes second nature. A lot of your second nature is old ways. So you can't run from your past because in certain cases, your past is your present. And it's the only way you're going to make it to a future.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
That is true.
Absolutely.
Uh,
One other thing. Anita, I'm not ashamed of what my people had to endure. I'm not ashamed. And it's that feeling of disassociation. You don't want to be associated with this because you're this kind of a black person or that. I don't have to be ashamed that someone decided to use my body. I'm not ashamed because my body grew and built the United States of America. I take great pride in that. Don't necessarily like the method, but I can point to people like Benjamin Banneker that designed Washington, D.C. I can take pride in what my people have accomplished. So we have to learn how to appreciate our forefathers and our foremothers. Yes, they were degraded. They were everything shameful. They went through a horrible, horrible thing. But look at the great thing that was birthed out of it. Me. You.
yeah, us. That's
Us.
true. That
We're
is true.
here because there's something they say that in the grandmother's womb, every woman is born with all the eggs that she would ever produce in her life. So so you're in your mother's eggs, which is in the grandmother's eggs, which is in the great grandmother's eggs. So we're all connected. So my great grandmother, I was in her eggs well before any of us came into existence. Our DNA was already in the making. And that's it, just to think about it, the biology of it.
That's deep right there.
That
That's
the
deep.
eggs that I carry multiple generations. My daughter, whatever egg she was, she had the eggs of her children, and her children have the eggs of their children, and they were all inside of me. So I take no shame on the horrific life that my people had here at one point in time in America.
Um, dang. I mean, once again, I gotta follow y'all up. Good grief, man.
You
Like,
usually get teach. You usually got to be like tripping balls on like hallucinogenics to get that deep.
yeah, I'm telling you.
Like most folk are looking at sound and listening to colors to come up with something like that at that point.
And now I got to
follow that
up. I got to follow that up. But I want to go back on the bubble situation because Teach, I think Teach's still frozen. Teach, can you still hear us? Oh, she's frozen. But I want to go back to what Teach was saying about the bubble. Like, first off, I speak for the whole panel and speak for this whole show. There is nothing wrong. I know Teach already said this comment, but I'm gonna say it again. There's nothing wrong with being self-reliant. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I'm gonna take it a different step further. What is your self-reliance doing to help out the community? Because you can say in one breath, I'm taking care of myself, I'm taking care of my family, which nobody won't have no problem with that. But if you're sitting there trying to tell me, like, look, you should be like me, where's your hand? How's it helping the community? Yes, you could be an example, but if you being the example and not helping out the community, you are falling into that individualism. You're creating that bubble of, look, I got mines. Now go ahead and get yours. And that's the part nobody's talking about. That's the part that people are not addressing. Because yes, you do got brothers, you do got sisters out there that are doing their own thing that's great. But they have the nerve to come out and sit there and say, well, you on the Democrat plantation, you on the Republican plantation, and look at what I'm doing. Where are you with your hand out to at least help the community out? What are you doing to solve a problem that nobody don't have to worry about tomorrow? And that's one of the biggest things that I want to do with the Wet Network, Jesus, man. That's one of the things I want to do with the Wet Network that me and Beast are trying to do. Because I said with every bit of profits that we get, I'm reinvesting back into the Wet Network and having us have our own things on the side of our neighborhoods, you know, where we do have tangibles that Black folks and then other, depending on what other groups want to join in, but mainly Black folks can touch, that they can grab, that they can not only just live off of, that they go to running gangs, rather than getting into being homeless, rather than going in the unemployment line, that you have something that can benefit you and that we can also give back into the community. Like if you got business or an idea that we can help you get off the ground, yeah, and invest in events and invest in organization in the community that can help our kids, not only just our kids, but people in general with whatever, and give them the resources that they can use to help their lives become better. Now, if we talk about that self-reliance, then I'm all for it. But if you're just doing it just for self, you will never get to that echelon or have that bubble or whatever you want to call it, that box where racism isn't going to give you that wake-up call and remind you what you is. You can have as many dead presidents as you want in your bank account. They still going to remind you, you just another nigga with money.
I know. I heard tell plenty niggas that ended up in jail and dead, and they was rich.
Yeah, lost their land and all that stuff. You know, finding out history with what's that haunted lake in freaking Atlanta? Lake Lucier, Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier, I just found out was under that water. That wasn't a natural lake. That was a man-made lake.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it was black. It was a black neighborhood that was there.
That they drowned. That
they literally drowned Black people, which was a thriving town, by the way, and it was in an area called Forsyth, Georgia, which, if everybody remembers, is kind of like what they did in Rosewood. They basically went through that community and ran those Black people off that owned that land and made them. I don't even think they made them sign it over. They just basically
they've been doing it up until the 20th and 21st century. I remember there was a story about a southern town that was started off all Black,
and they ran
it was down to like less than 10 families that were actually Black in the city of a couple thousand.
Right, and then another one too. I didn't know Central Park and freaking New York, a black thriving community that basically
Manhattan.
Now a tourist trap.
and that now it's a place where people can walk and go hiking, have a picnic and all that stuff. And now you find it out that was a black thriving town that they basically just ran black people off. And that's a northern city. So why I'm saying all this,
New York was a slave state.
yeah,
Okay.
that too.
And then the whole section of Manhattan in New York used to be a black neighborhood.
Mhm.
And that's where they found that black burial ground under one of these buildings.
And there you go. And this, and you probably saying, Morrison, why are you saying all this? You can have your own town. You could be a freaking basketball star. You could be a billionaire owning your own freaking network. But either way, it just take that one time. That one time you get pulled over by police, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to happen. Get pulled over by police, and they gonna remind you. They could care less if you P. Diddy or LeBron. Look what happened to LeBron James's house. Look what happened to that one basketball player in Milwaukee that got at his own door, got arrested, got tased, still wouldn't tell him, why am I getting arrested? Which had the freaking owner basically say, Milwaukee's not a racist state, we're not racist, this is wrong, and all that stuff. Where they still
They just had footage of a football player having the cops called on him to the neighborhood that he just purchased. Mm-hmm. You just bought a house there, you moving in. Your first day there, they call the police on you.
Right.
Oh, bitch, and I want back all my money.
Right. And brings to this final point. It's just going to prove to you that you just another nigga with money. That's it. You don't have no power, no nothing. You can go on that self-reliance till you blue in the face and maybe be in front of Time magazine. But it's going to be that one time when they think you get too big for your britches, they're going to bring you back down to earth. And they're going to let you know who you really are. And
well, to say it positively, be self-reliant, but be aware.
Be aware
of your adversary. Be aware of your adversary.
And
that's all.
And you should not ever sleep on racism, because they're gonna be people that's gonna remind you. It's like every move you it's like this. With every move you make, somebody's watching. That's one thing in the military that stuck with me like a damn plague. Everybody. It doesn't matter if you think you all by yourself. Somebody's always watching. Studying you move, studying the way you talk, studying the way you walk. Somebody's always watching. So always be on your P's and Q's. Keep doing you, but understand somebody's always watching. And I'm falling all over the place. She's just throwing us. But yeah, let's go ahead and just close out the show. Like I said, it's great that Teacher's back on here. It's great that Beasts have everything good and all that stuff. But are y'all all gonna be back for Wednesday?
Yes.
All right, cool. And with that being said, first of all, we'd like to thank Sky Zone Society for sponsoring this show. And Teach, if you could get a hold of that one brother to tell him to
Mr.
come on
Williams.
Show. Yes, Mr. Williams. If you can get Mr. Williams on the show, I still got the tab for his business and all that stuff. Tell him he need to get back on this show ASAP, because remember, I had technical difficulties on my end, so my stuff gonna be a whole lot better this time around. But other than that, let's go ahead and head on out. As for Anita Joe, aka Teach, and my boy, my bro, Beast Johnson, which is up next. I don't know if he's doing the base and bake. Stay tuned for that.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. But other than that, and me as your host, Donnell Monte Boris, thank y'all for tuning in to another edition, another installment of #Fade to Black. We will see y'all all on Wednesday. Y'all have a good one. And also to my panel, y'all have a good one too. Catch y'all later. Bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.